Some secrets can change your life. Greetings, my dear viewer. The hero of this story was a very good man and he helped his friend. But in return, his friend told him a secret. Let's hear this story. Let's go. The ability to help others is a double-edged sword, no matter how painful it is for me to admit it. Despite the melancholic tone, I felt obliged to help my dear friend, believing that if not me, then who? But I did not know that in doing so I would stumble upon a dark secret that my own wife was keeping, and I myself would need help. This revelation was completely unforeseen. Choosing a restaurant for our Friday strategy session was my responsibility, and I decided to choose a Hungarian restaurant. I really wanted to try their dish, Rakott Krumpli. For those who may not be familiar with Hungarian cuisine, Rakott Krumpli is a delicious potato dish that is prepared with layers of bacon, eggs, and sausage. The Magyar's restaurant serves the best version of this dish I've ever tasted, and I've tried a lot of them. Our group of 6 members of the Imagination team from Isaacs Forsman Marketing enjoyed the meal immensely. We sat down at the table and started by ordering drinks. Bob Isaacs, the son of the managing director and the head of our team, took out his trusty folder and notebook, cleared his throat, and began the meeting. Every Friday afternoon, our team spent 2 to 3 hours discussing the status of our projects and planning for the future. The atmosphere was relaxed and informal, and holding a meeting on Friday helped us start the week with a sense of momentum. Following this routine contributed to the formation of a deep sense of camaraderie in our team. We have been diligently following it for almost 3 years now, since Bob took over the division, and our performance has improved significantly. Although Bob may have been originally appointed because of his last name, his achievements really won the team over, as evidenced by the significant increase in our profits. About half an hour after the start of our meeting, I happened to look towards the far corner of the restaurant. This is a well-known place for couples who want to be alone, and Marcy and I specially reserved this table in advance. But my confusion became palpable when I saw a familiar silhouette at the table, despite the fact that the woman was accompanied by a man who was clearly not her husband. It was Laura Wycliffe, my wife's closest friend and colleague for over 2 decades. My head turned over in surprise. Up to this point, I had always considered Laura to be a faithful companion of the Mother Superior of our district Catholic Church. Trying to control my thoughts, I forced myself to look away from this couple and focus on the meeting. I prayed that Laura hadn't noticed me yet, fearing that she wouldn't stay at the restaurant, let alone get carried away with the activity she was doing. My face became warm, and I felt sweat break out on it as I looked at them over and over again. I saw them kissing gently, and he was sweetly stroking her hand. After enduring this unpleasant sight for 10 minutes, I came up with a plausible excuse to leave early. Fortunately, Bob kindly allowed me to leave. The trip home was a blur, and a dilemma was spinning in my head. How to tell your wife that her best friend, Saint Laura, is kissing another man in a restaurant, possibly hinting at an affair. When I returned home, I realized that I had a few free hours before my wife, who worked as an assistant to the vice president at Wells Fargo Bank, returned. I decided to change into more comfortable clothes, choosing jeans and a t-shirt, and poured myself a glass of Casamigos tequila. While taking a sip, I couldn't help but laugh at their excessive advertising campaign, which made me think about marketing tactics. One thing that stood out in their ads was the use of humor, which made me think about the power of a well-implemented marketing strategy. My attention was drawn to the inclusion of George Clooney among the co-owners of Casamigos. While I appreciate its straightforward appeal, it seems that the ads are targeted at women rather than men. Traditionally, women are not significant consumers of tequila compared to men. Despite the fact that George approves of this product, I am skeptical that it will attract a significant number of female customers. This is just my personal point of view, and only time will tell how accurate my forecast is, as it often happens. I think George made the wrong choice by not following Brigadier Isaac's example. That's just my opinion. I was distracted by the fourth shot when I heard my wife come in through the garage. Instead of greeting her right away, as I usually do, I got lost in my thoughts. This made her anxious when she entered the family room. "Oh no," she said in a hoarse voice. "Are you going to tell me that we need to talk?" Marcy sat down on the couch in front of my chair, looking like she'd been punched in the stomach. "To us, we really need to talk." "Actually," I clarified, "it's not for the reason you're suggesting." She raised her head, a spark of hope flickered in her eyes. "As far as I can tell, we're fine. This conversation does not concern us," I explained. She took a deep breath, raised her eyebrows, and shrugged. "Then who are we talking about?" she asked. "About Laura, to Laura Wycliffe," I said. "It's hard to believe, isn't it?" I watched as my wife almost fell off the couch, seemingly oblivious to the near incident. Her shocked look was soon replaced by an annoyed one. "Okay, spit it out," she demanded. "It better be good, otherwise you'll be kicked off the couch for a week." I told her about what I had seen in the restaurant, and explained that just because she was fondling a man, it did not mean that she had something with him. "Although this may be important information, I have to admit." "Oh my God," she whispered. "Laura wouldn't do that, would she?" "She's your best friend. You know her better than I do," I commented. I took a sip of my tequila. Marcy stared at me in silence for a while. Her expression was unreadable. "So, what's next?" I asked. "I guess you'll want to be in charge no matter what we decide to do." "I will take care of it, regardless of our decision," she confirmed. I raised an eyebrow in response. "So you won't tell Tim?" I asked. "Why would that be?" she replied. "You're not sure about what you saw. How can we resist this?" She continued. "I don't want to interfere in their marriage without knowing the whole story. We have to do something." "I may not have all the facts, but what I've seen makes me doubt Laura's loyalty," I countered. "If I had told you that Tim was seen kissing another woman, you would have gone to Laura immediately to talk to her," I reminded her. "I'm closer to her than to him." "You know about it," she remarked. "But that doesn't excuse her behavior. You should at least talk to her and listen to her version of events," I advised. "I can't just point my finger at her without proof," Marcy insisted. "I have to approach the situation more delicately than you do." "It's interesting to hear her talk about getting into someone else's personal space," I commented. On Monday and Tuesday, Marcy didn't think about Laura. So on Wednesday evening, after putting our daughter Rose to bed, I asked if my wife had talked to Laura. Stumbling briefly in mid-sentence, she quickly changed the subject, effectively ending the conversation. Having decided to leave everything as it is, I decided to discuss this issue with my wife the next evening. "If it's inconvenient for you to meet her, I'll sort it out myself," I offered, reminding her that I was the one who saw Laura. "No, please don't do this," my wife Marcy begged. "I'll talk to her tomorrow." I had a long-term relationship with my wife, and I felt when she hesitated whether to do something, it made me worry about the whole situation. "I need an answer, my love. If you're afraid to go to her, I'll have to talk to Tim. If she cheats on him and he finds out that I was in the know and didn't tell him, he'll be justifiably upset. We may not be as close as you and Laura are, but he has been my friend for many years. True friends are always honest with each other. If my wife was unfaithful and a friend knew about it but didn't tell me, it would hurt our friendship. Betraying a friend in this way is inexcusable," I stressed to Marcy. She looked upset by my words and agreed to talk to Laura the next day. I had no idea that this conversation would eventually lead to the collapse of my marriage. But only then did I realize that there was a problem. When Marcy returned the next day, she seemed to be hiding something. I got the feeling that she didn't want me to bring up the subject. After Rose left with her friends on Friday night, I decided to talk to her about it. She pretended to forget, but eventually Laura revealed the truth. It wasn't exactly how I imagined it, but Marcy admitted that she had crossed the line with a guy named Kenneth Attenborough. She promised that it would not happen again. She insists that she just lost control of her actions. If Marcy could have looked me in the eye when she spoke, I might have been more inclined to believe her. But she refused to meet my gaze, instead staring at my waist, over my shoulder, or anywhere but into my eyes. In the 22 years of our marriage, she never avoided eye contact, even when she admitted that she had damaged my cherished Mustang Shelby GT 500 2015. I had a feeling that Marcy and Kenneth were communicating, but I rejected the idea of any relationship as ridiculous. Nevertheless, Marcy got involved in this case, protecting her friend and outright deceiving me. For the first time in our long history, she deliberately lied to me, and it broke my heart. Over the next few days, I tried to figure out why my wife betrayed my trust, and I couldn't find a single excuse. A few days later, Bob Isaacs asked for a one-on-one meeting with me in his office, so he subtly hinted that we need to talk about the mistake I made. Despite the fact that our team rarely invites anyone to such discussions, Bob treats them with caution, maintaining confidentiality and not embarrassing anyone in public. After exchanging pleasantries, Bob asked, "What's going on, Norm? You look worried, and your performance has been poor lately." I told Bob about Marcy's recent deception related to a possible affair with her friend and admitted that I didn't know what to do next. Bob, staring at me intently, offered to hire a private investigator to investigate the case of Marcy's friend. "The main thing is to find peace of mind, Norm. You can either fixate on it or face the truth, find out the truth and move on," he advised. "I have a contact who's affordable and can provide answers promptly. What do you think of this plan?" "Would you tell your friend if you found out that his wife was cheating?" "Remember the possible consequences of such news. You may be blamed for this. What if your friend gets upset with you, even if his wife is actually unfaithful? This is a reasonable fear, but wouldn't it be a betrayal of your friendship if you kept this secret from him?" I thought for a moment. "You're either going to be the best friend or the biggest fool," Bob remarked. The next day, I met Roy Hoover, the private investigator Bob had recommended. 2 weeks later, I finally had proof that Laura Wycliffe was cheating on her husband. Now it's my turn to do something. But I couldn't bring myself to tell my wife about it, who, despite the betrayal, was clearly protecting her friend. In 20 years of working with my wife, I understood Laura's character better than her own husband, Tim. Over the years, I've heard countless stories about Laura, which has allowed me to get a clearer picture of her true nature. I first met Tim through his wife, as he did with me. He seemed to me a respectable man, although a little reserved, perhaps because of his engineering education. Despite this, we communicated well and enjoyed each other's company. All four of us, passionate about sports, formed a strong bond and shared many similar values, including a belief in the importance of marital fidelity. But Roy Hoover's work destroyed my idea of Tim's commitment to this belief. As for my wife, her position on this issue remained unclear. I called Tim to make an appointment for lunch next Tuesday. I was thinking about meeting on Monday, but Mondays have always been hard enough without adding stress to it. I knew this meeting would be difficult. I asked the waitress to take a table in a quiet corner to have some privacy. I ordered a double tankard on the rocks, and Tim chose a dark craft beer from an extensive assortment. He liked craft beer. When he came to the table, a nervous smile appeared on his face. "Are you drinking already? Things must be really bad," he joked. "Who's unlucky, you or me?" "To you," I replied with a sigh. We ordered food, and as soon as the server was deleted, I brought up a difficult topic. "I don't want to upset you, Tim, but your wife is cheating on you," I said. "I'm telling you this because you're my friend, and I hope a good friend would do the same to me if my spouse was cheating instead of leaving me in the dark." A tear rolled down his cheek and he turned away. "Damn it," he muttered. "I had no idea." "How did you guess? Did Marcy say something?" I repeated his frown. "I don't know how to tell you, but I think Marcy was covering for her," I admitted, avoiding his gaze. "A few weeks ago, I saw something that made me suspicious, and when I talked to Marcy about it, she tried to downplay it at first. After promising to talk to Laura, She returned with her version, saying that Laura confessed to some misconduct, but denies the fact of infidelity. Despite Marcy's honesty, I felt in my gut that she wasn't telling me the whole truth, and I decided to figure out the situation myself. I didn't want to betray my friends. We let the waitress bring our dishes to the table. My stomach was churning with excitement, and I could only imagine how he felt. How long has this been going on? And with whom? I'll make him pay. I promise I'll finish him off, he growled. I can't say exactly how long, but the man in question is Kenneth Attenborough. I saw their hot kiss in the Magyars 3 weeks ago. I didn't know who he was at the time, but the detective I hired turned out to be very useful. I handed him the dossier and a flash drive with photos and videos. Here, I said, handing him a large envelope. He carefully opened the envelope, trying to hide confidential information from prying eyes. When he read the contents, a whole range of emotions flashed across his face: anger, disgust, and sadness. Damn it! Did you hire a private investigator to keep an eye on my wife? He exclaimed. Why did you do that? I'm grateful, of course, but it's probably worth a lot. I had a feeling that your wife was unfaithful, but I couldn't raise this issue without solid evidence. You are my friend. I was just trying to be a good friend, I said. He lowered his eyes. His face became unreadable. Damn, he muttered. I'm sorry, Norm. I guess I'm not as good a friend as you are. I couldn't help but lose my temper. Damn it! I shouted, jumping up from my chair. Calm down, Norm! Sit down! He called, trying to calm me down. Looking around, I realized that now all the attention was focused on me. I raised my hands in apology, and most of the people went back to their conversations. Taking my seat again, I whispered hoarsely, Speak up! I tried to keep my voice low. From what you just told me, it follows that our wives were protecting each other. He continued, The commitment of loyalty that we thought we had all agreed on seems to have been respected only by you and me. He paused before confessing, I found out about Marcy 6 months ago. Laura confessed to me that a year ago she was dating a man she met in a bar, just at the time when I found out about Marcy's actions. She begged me not to share this information with you, and unfortunately I agreed. I'm really sorry, Norm. So you're saying that my beloved wife has been involved with another man for the last 1.5 years? Do you know his name? Is their relationship going on? I bombarded him with questions. Yes, it's been about 1.5 years now, and as far as I know, their romance continues. From time to time, I catch snatches of their phone conversations. Now that I know the truth, Laura no longer finds it necessary to hide anything from me. She said that his name is Bill Gosterland. He works as a junior executive at a technology company located near the girls' place of work. He and his colleagues were seen at a bar that girls often visit after work. Trying my best to stay calm, I could barely contain the urge to scream or panic. I couldn't believe that everything turned out so badly for me that day. It looks like we're both in a quandary, figuratively speaking, Tim commented. I asked the waitress to bring us more drinks. I called my office and informed Bob Isaacs that I had personal matters to attend to and would be out for the rest of the day. Tim did the same with his office, deciding to take the day off too. Then I contacted Roy Hoover and gave him some additional assignments. This time, Tim agreed to take on all the expenses, which I thought was fair. That sounds fair, buddy, he nodded. 2 weeks later, I received my own set of documents confirming what Tim had told me. During those 2 weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about what went wrong in my marriage that made Marcy look for another man 2 decades later. Discovering her infidelity was painful enough, but seeing the photos was like a dagger in my heart. The most painful ones were the ones where she looked at him with such adoration. It was obvious that the connection between them was not limited to physical intimacy. Despite Marcy's attempts to initiate intimacy for 2 weeks, there was no evidence of this. I was making up excuses to avoid her advances, and all the while I was consumed by the fear that my wife was dating someone else. Instead of passively waiting for evidence, I took active action. I met with my lawyer to resolve typical financial issues. After receiving the envelope with incriminating evidence, I did not waste time preparing for the trial and immediately sent Marcy there. Despite the fact that I live in a state where guilt is not necessary, I decided not to specify adultery as the reason for our divorce. This decision seems to have confused my unfaithful wife. "What's going on, dear?" she asked with tears in her eyes when I called her just 5 minutes after submitting the application. "Do you really have to ask?" I replied calmly. "Two can play a game of deception, Marcy. You've been cheating on me for over a year now. Did you really think that you could escape without consequences forever?" There was silence in the room for a few anxious moments before I heard her sigh heavily. "I was going to tell you about it soon. I just wasn't ready yet," she admitted. "What the hell, Marcy? How long did you think you could hide this from me?" I interjected. "A year and a half. You're right. I should have told you sooner," she agreed. "I wasn't looking for him, Norm. It just happened that way. We have a connection. I love him. He's my soulmate." "Well, that's it," I grumbled. "He's clearly your soulmate. I remembered the time when we had a strong bond and when she was in love with me. I remember being your soulmate," I thought irritably. "Damn it, a woman." "I'm sorry, Norm. I should have been more open with you," she replied before ending the conversation. I sighed, thinking to myself, well, everything went smoothly. When I entered the room, Marcy had already put a large pizza from my favorite delivery point on the table. She poured herself a glass of wine and I took a beer. "I wish we had discussed this earlier," I said. She blushed, feeling guilty. "It's not your fault, Norm. It's all because of me," she confessed. "I've been in love with you for a long time, so he just took a place in my heart." "Was it before or after we ended up in bed?" I replied. "Oh, Norm, did you have to talk about this? I was hoping that we could deal with this as adults," she laments. "I'll do my best to be careful, Marcy, but it's hard for me, just like it was hard for you to be faithful," I replied with a note of sarcasm. Her expression became shocking, and tears welled up in her eyes. Taking a deep breath, she finally confessed, "I think I deserve it." "Yes, I deserve it," I replied hoarsely. 7 months later, Marcy and I joined the ranks of the divorced. After selling the house, I received a generous portion of the proceeds, which allowed me to make a significant down payment for a 3-bedroom apartment located just a 15-minute drive from my office. My daughter informed me that Marcy had moved in with her lover. Meanwhile, our daughter Rose was preparing to start her final year of college. Despite the fact that it was difficult for her to come to terms with our divorce, she tried to figure out the situation. She wondered if Marcy should have ended her relationship with me before starting a relationship with Bill. "In my opinion, it makes perfect sense if she doesn't love you anymore and has found love elsewhere, Dad. Everyone deserves to be with their loved one. I hope you'll find one someday," Rose commented. I grumbled back. "I thought I found this soulmate when I married your mom. I didn't expect to be replaced. I don't remember that there was a replacement clause in our vows." Noticing how I rolled my eyes, Rose wisely chose to remain silent. For the first 6 months after the divorce, I preferred not to think about what might happen if Rose found herself in a similar situation. I wasn't in a hurry to date, like some of my friends, because I didn't consider satisfying physical desires to be a top priority. I believed there was more to life than just making love. Although I didn't talk about my divorce, I was willing to talk about it if it came up naturally in the conversation. Over time, more and more single women began to appear in my life. It seemed paradoxical to me. In my early 20s, it was not easy for me to find a soulmate. But now, at 40, women were showing interest in me. After a while, I started talking about this observation with a friend who had gone through a divorce. "You're a godsend, Norm," he said. "You look good, fit, and successful in your career. No wonder women find you desirable. There are more single women than men at our age." Many men over the age of 40 are guided by dates with much younger partners, which further narrows the circle of acquaintances, he said. "I hadn't thought about that prospect before, Al," I replied. For the next 6 months, I tried to go away on weekends. I must admit that I have dated both younger and older partners. One unforgettable experience was with a 25-year-old girl who challenged me physically, resulting in me being exhausted and barely able to function the next day. She joked that there were pills for my problem, referring to my problems the next morning. On the contrary, communicating with 55-year-old women was kinder to my body and ego. As my second Christmas as a divorced man approached, Bob Isaacs walked into my office and closed the door behind him, and then sat down across from me. He looked visibly worried. "What's on your mind, Bob?" "Norm, are you planning on bringing a couple to the company's Christmas party next week?" Bob asked cautiously. "I've noticed that you've been seeing a lot lately, so you can bring whoever you want." I noticed beads of sweat on Bob's forehead, not understanding what this conversation was getting at. "I haven't thought about bringing anyone this year," I replied cautiously. "Why are you asking?" When he sighed heavily, I couldn't help but feel uneasy, fearing that he was about to deliver disturbing news. He began to tell how his wife, a strong personality to be reckoned with, and a little busy, suggested that he consider dating her former college roommate, Lainey. After going through a painful divorce due to infidelity, Marilyn believed that Lainey and I were the perfect couple. "I know I can't get you to agree with me, but if you don't agree, Marilyn will make my life difficult." "So what's up with Lainey? Does she have 2 noses or something?" "No, nothing like that. No physical abnormalities. She is generally very kind." "Ah, that's it," I interjected. "The classic, wonderful personality. This usually means that she doesn't look very good, right?" "No, really, I assure you, she's not unattractive at all, and she has a really wonderful personality." "Please, Norm, please," he begged. I laughed when I saw his grimace. Knowing how attractive his wife was, I wondered if she had the same charm. "Okay, I agree, but Marilyn better make it worth my effort," I said. "I agree," he said, looking much more animated than he had a moment ago. "Since I've agreed, tell me about Miss Personality," I asked. Over the next few minutes, he described my mysterious companion in detail. Her height and weight were perfect, and her long blonde hair streamed down her back. Despite being a former NCAA Division I volleyball player, she managed to stay in shape even after having children. Working as an actuary for an insurance company, she was not only smart, but also detail-oriented, which was an interesting combination of qualities. Wondering why Marilyn was trying to set me up with someone like her, I couldn't help but wonder. My wife just can't resist when it comes to introducing new people to each other. She is sure that you and her friend will get along great. The annual Isaacs Forsman Christmas party was huge, with live music, delicious snacks, ribs, a speech by CEO Philip Isaacs, who is Bob's father, and various awards. The atmosphere of elegance prevailed at the event. The men were dressed in the best suits, and the women in beautiful dresses. Philip's wife, Phoebe, was responsible for every detail. Arriving at Bob Isaacs' house to pick up my date, I felt like a nervous teenager going on a first date. Marilyn greeted me at the door with a friendly kiss on the cheek, and then invited me inside. When Bob came over, I couldn't help but smile awkwardly. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Isaacs, and don't worry, I'll make sure she gets home on time," I joked, knowing Bob had caught my nervousness. He smiled back at me, clearly preparing a witty reply. "I won't hesitate to find you both in my car," he warned, and we exchanged sly grins. At that moment, my companion appeared. She confidently entered the room in a form-fitting turquoise dress that elegantly fell to the floor, with a daring slit that accentuated her perfectly toned left leg. Her hair was styled in a chic high ponytail. Her hair cascaded down her back, and her makeup accentuated her stunning azure eyes. And those luscious full lips? I tried to speak, but I was speechless. "Well said, Norm," Marilyn purred, making my cheeks burn. When Lainey and I entered the party room, heads turned, and I realized that it wasn't just because of my new Armani suit. Upon arrival, we were greeted by Philip and Phoebe Isaacs. "Lainey, honey, I'm so glad to see you again." Do you like spending time with children? Did you bring your son with you? Phoebe asked. Norm, I hope you don't mind if I borrow your companion for a minute, Philip said with a grin, warmly taking my hand. I worked under him for almost 2 decades, and our relationship went beyond the usual employer-employee bond. He was more like a father to me. After my father passed away 2 years after joining Isaac's team, Philip became the father I relied on for advice. He and Phoebe kept in touch, especially when they found out about my difficulties with Marcy. Although we never talked about it directly, I could tell that they knew about my dates after the divorce. We've known Lainey almost as long as Marilyn, Philip commented. It's nice to see that she's under a good influence considering that you're a son. I couldn't help but notice how subtly he uses sunlight, hinting at a deeper connection between us. Definitely, sir, I replied. Since Marilyn was planning this evening, I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I promised to be respectful. You can count on me, I assured him. I believe you, Philip confirmed. I am glad that we have come to an agreement. Throughout the evening, Lainey and I shared life stories, getting to know each other better. Her dancing was elegant and graceful. I cherished the moments when we danced slow dances, and her form easily fell into my arms. Despite being asked to dance by other men throughout the evening, she always looked at me first. Although I wanted her not to dance with anyone else, the uncertain nature of our relationship did not allow me to protest. Nevertheless, she seemed to understand my unspoken feelings and politely declined all other offers. The evening was beautiful and ended with a heartfelt kiss on the doorstep of the Isaacs' house. On the way home, I asked her to enter her phone number. Sitting in the driveway of the Isaacs' house, I called her. What are your plans for tomorrow? I asked. I had to admit that Marilyn was right. Lainey was exactly what I was looking for, and surprisingly, we didn't sleep together on the first 5 dates. It wasn't until our 6th date that we finally did it, and it was an amazing experience for both of us. I didn't know how much time had passed since the last intimate meeting with Lainey, but she readily responded when we started kissing on the couch in my apartment after dinner and dancing. I may not have been a skilled dancer like Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly, but my ex-wife loved dancing, and I learned enough to handle it. It's funny that this skill suddenly came in handy in my life. I would never have thought of that. That evening, Lainey looked especially excited when we left the club and headed to my apartment. The night was filled with incomparable intimacy, and I saw in her a real jewel. After we hugged, she looked at me with a puzzled expression and exclaimed, "What kind of world is this?" She said that during our conversation, she felt as if she had blacked out for a moment and then returned to reality. I couldn't help but smile at her words. I felt a surge of pride and thought, "You are really wonderful." Gasping with delight, I exclaimed, "You are amazing!" Maybe we could repeat this experience in the future? But she answered quickly, "Not today. I don't think I can take it anymore." "Your wish is my command," I assured her, then bent down and kissed her fervently. 2 weeks later, I met Lainey's 13-year-old son, Sean, who lovingly called Bob and Marilyn his uncle and aunt. He was impressed with my abilities in table hockey, table football, and frisbee. It was obvious that his father did not spend much time with him during his visits. At first, Sean was shy of me, but by the end of the 2nd day, he stuck to me like glue. "You never told me that you get along well with kids, too," Lainey said, acknowledging my newfound talent. "I love children very much, and have always dreamed of a family with 4 children. Unfortunately, my ex didn't want to have more children after the first one. Initially, we agreed to have 2 children, but she changed her mind and often recalled the physical sacrifices she had to make. Despite this, she was a devoted mother to our daughter, and I can't fault her parenting skills. And in general, I had no complaints about her as a partner until everything began to collapse towards the end of our relationship." Lainey asked what had changed about the woman Bob and Marilyn had once considered worthy. "It seems that she developed feelings for another man and she began to distance herself from me. She even called him her betrothed." Lainey suggested that we stop talking about her and focus on other things. 6 months later, she finally accepted my offer and changed jobs to be with me. Together, we started looking for a new home. On Saturday, I asked Lainey to marry me. The next Monday at work, Bob walked into my office with a big grin on his face. Okay, Marilyn was right, I confessed to Bob, who sat smugly across from me. I admit that she was right. What's the catch? You seem too pleased. Bob reassured me, saying that there was no catch. You just need to be a good stepfather to his beloved nephew. Bob and I were enjoying a drink in a quiet pub after work when I noticed Tim at the next table with an amazing girl. It's been about a year since I last saw Tim, when he and Laura were trying to mend their relationship. My friendship with Bob has grown significantly since I started dating Lainey. It was obvious that their attempts were unsuccessful. Hi, it's been a while. How are you? I asked, walking up to his table. An expression of concern appeared on his face when he saw me approaching. It was obvious that my presence foreshadowed the collapse of both our marriages. Hi, Norm. How are you? He replied. I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to say hello, I said, trying to calm him down. There was no invasion. This is Anna McGill, my friend, he introduced. From his calm demeanor, it was clear that this young woman of about 20 was just a friend. Anna, this is Norm, the man who completely changed my life, Tim said. Anna looked surprised. Tim noticed her reaction and realized that he needed to give her a brief explanation, at least a brief version. This is his private investigator who uncovered my ex-wife's infidelity. After I revealed his wife's infidelity to him, he decided to divorce her. As for me, I tried to establish a relationship with my own spouse. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned, Tim explained, giving me a lopsided smile. I'm not sure if she went back to her boyfriend, but I later found out that they resumed their relationship after about a year. Can you imagine? May I ask? He asked, interested in the latest events in my life. I told him that I got engaged to Lainey. When everything was left behind, I thought you'd never get married again, he commented. She has to be very special to heal the wounds inflicted on Marcy, he added. She's really extraordinary, I agreed. I'm sorry that it didn't work out for you, Tim, I said sincerely. Well, if you get married again, then I think that's the end of the chapter about your ex, Tim said. I gave him a confused look. I thought my relationship with Marcy was over when we finalized the divorce. Didn't you hear? He asked incredulously. Didn't you hear what? I replied. Marcy's partner dumped her, he told me. Didn't your daughter tell you? It turned out that their relationship was not as harmonious as Marcy thought. She wanted commitment, and he was looking for other ways. She mistook their relationship for love, while he considered it purely physical. I couldn't help but wonder why Rose hadn't told me about all this. I said that although I had lost interest in this situation, I expected her to get in touch and try to make peace with you. I was sure Rose had told her about your engagement, so she didn't bother. No matter what, I have to admit that I am very lucky. Lainey and I had a bond that was probably stronger than the one I had with Marcy, both emotionally and physically. She also has a son, Sean. From a simple stepson, he quickly turned into my son in every way except paper. Even after his parents divorced, we were able to build a strong bond, while he still maintained a close relationship with his father. Despite our different sports preferences, he supported the Chicago Cubs, and I supported the New York Yankees. We were able to find a common language by supporting each other's teams when they were not competing with each other because they belonged to different leagues. When Lainey and I bought our house, it had 4 bedrooms. The second floor of the house was divided into 2 main bedrooms. At one end there was a master bedroom, and at the opposite end there was a smaller bedroom. The master bedroom had a private bathroom, and the smaller one had a bathroom with a shower. Although the smaller bedroom could be used as a guest room, it was always assumed that it belonged to Sean. The uncertainty that we would give him this room disappeared when he said that the separation would help reduce the noise from our room. Come on, Mom. I'm 14 years old. Do you really think that I do not know what you are going to do in your room? He said, trying to defuse the situation. It's all your fault, Lainey countered playfully. He talks to you too much. Rose became instantly attached to Lainey when they first met, even before I proposed to her. I thought Rose was jealous of how close Sean and I were. I'm so happy that I finally have the son I've always dreamed of, I told her, and there was a note of tension in her voice. Rose, having a son is great, but you will always be my little girl. Your place in my heart is irreplaceable. I assured her that Sean had just found his own place in our lives. We hugged tightly. I'm glad you found someone, Dad. I was afraid you'd be alone forever, she whispered. Even though Rose never asked, she kept me informed of her mother's affairs. My ex-wife dated young men, some of whom were even at the age at which her own daughter could date. Rose jokingly expressed fears that she would have to introduce Marcy to her companions, fearing that her mother would try to seduce them. 2 years after marrying Lainey, Rose married a big man who had previously played in the minor leagues. After retiring from baseball, he found a use for his business education by getting a job in the financial sector. Despite his dedication to the Atlanta Braves, he became close to Sean and me because of our shared passion for baseball. When the three of us were together, the tension sometimes reached its maximum, as a result of which Lainey and Rose preferred to go shopping while we watched the games. Rose warned me that Marcy would bring her fiancé Larry, a banker in his 40s, to the wedding. He's just adorable, Dad, but I think she's really into him. Just try to stay calm even if he pulls you, she said. If only he didn't overdo it, I replied. Rose understood Larry. He was calm, but he knew when to back off. I could tell that Marcy was worried that he might push my buttons, since she never strayed too far when we were talking. As the father of the bride, I financed the wedding and made sure that Rose had everything she wanted. Throughout my successful career at Isaacs Forsman Associates, I have become a 10% partner. Philip Isaacs and Jack Forsman even suggested adding my name to the company name, but I felt Isaacs's Forsman had a strong corporate identity that I didn't want to change much. I didn't need approval to raise my self-esteem. Since I was the only one paying, I decided to treat myself to something special. As the evening progressed, I got out a bottle of 12-year-old Pappy Van Winkle Special Reserve bourbon for my guests, who now included Phil and Bob Isaacs, Jack Forsman, my new son-in-law, and Larry McIntyre. I raised my glass to make a toast. While we were savoring our drinks, Larry whispered something to my ex-wife, and for the first time that evening he looked genuinely impressed. Later, Marcy pulled me aside to thank me for organizing a wonderful event and for including Larry in the celebration. You must be fine, Norm. Tonight must have been expensive, she said. I've been doing well for a long time, even when we were married. You just didn't notice it because you were focused on your soulmate. And to be honest, I don't regret that it didn't work out for you. Maybe Larry will suit you better. Marcy successfully walked down the aisle with Larry, but their marriage ended in divorce less than 3 years later. Marcy, on the other hand, seemed to be mostly alone, occasionally visiting an elderly fan and regularly spending bingo nights at her church. Over time, our bond with Lainey grew stronger, and Rose and my brother-in-law gave us 2 grandchildren. Meanwhile, Sean got a job at Isaacs Forsman Associates after graduating from college and tied the knot 2 years later. Together with his wife, they gave our family 3 new grandchildren. Lainey and I have discussed the idea of becoming empty nests many times, and after careful consideration, we decided to buy an SUV and travel around the country, while keeping the house to spend time with our grandchildren. It's been quite a while since I last saw Tim Wycliffe, and I can't help but wonder how things turned out for him. While I was enjoying a large and wonderful family, Marcy was lonely and unhappy. She did not have long-term relationships with men. What happened in her many relationships, I do not know. Perhaps it was her infidelity. But one day at a family event, she confessed to me that she was very sorry that she had exchanged me for another man. During the evening, Marcy was too much and behaved cheekily. It was that evening that our whole family stopped communicating with her when Marcy brazenly started kissing Rose's husband, who was shocked by the sight of his mother-in-law. There was a huge scandal when Rose caught Marcy snuggling up to her son-in-law. It's been 5 years since then, and now Marcy is undergoing treatment in a psychiatric clinic. Apparently, she started having health problems a long time ago, but we didn't pay attention to it. And that concludes this story. Check out my channel more often, and I'll keep you happy with new stories. May the Force be with you. Bye-bye.